Hello everyone, welcome back to the True North Report, news every Canadian needs to know. So, I have not quite recovered from my cough, so I decided to record this rather than live streaming it. Just figured it'd be better in case no one has to listen to me hack up a lung out there. So we got a lot of news that we got to get through. A couple big stories have happened over the last few days, last week or so, that I really want to get into. The first one I want to get into has to do with a betrayal. A betrayal of a political candidate who ran on the idea of being a populist candidate. Many people were hoping for the best from this person because they knew who his brother was. They knew what his brother did for the city of Toronto, and they were hoping that this man would have been very much like his brother. This apparently is not the case. This man, who received grassroots support, who had people that were there from the beginning, advocating for him for the beginning, received a lot of lashback from friends and family for advocating for a politician who was being called the Trump of Canada. If you haven't guessed by now, I am talking about Doug Ford and what his government wants to do. People like me and some others, we went all in for Doug Ford, hoping that he could repair Ontario from the problems that were left after 15 years of a provincial Liberal government that was headed by Dalton McGuinty and then by Kathleen Wynne. We were hoping that this man could have actually solved these problems, because we were so freaking tired of everything. We were tired of the corruption. We were tired of the spending, the ridiculous spending. And this is what he presented himself to be. He presented himself to be this man, to make that change, to not do politics as normal, but to come in as someone completely different and do things completely different. Now, this is turning out not to be the case. The man has not been very good at keeping his promises. He has kept some. In some ways, he has made Ontario better. But in a lot of ways, he has not done anything. Nothing at all to improve the state that we're in. And what I'm making reference to is a story that just came out from the CPC a few days ago. On December 16th, Ontario asked Ottawa to double numbers of economic immigrants. Minister Vic Fedeli says increase in numbers would help employers meet labor needs. Ontario is asking the federal government to double the number of economic immigrants to the province in order to deal with skilled labor shortage. Economic Development Minister Vic Fedeli says an expansion of the Ontario Immigration Nominee Program would respond to the labor market needs of the province employers. Fedeli made the request in a letter to Marco Mendicino, the new federal Minister of Immigration, Refugee, and Citizenship. In the letter, Fedeli asked the number of immigrants accepted under the program to be increased from about 7,000 this year to 13,300 in 2 years. Fedeli says Ontario requested an additional 1,000 nominations this year, but only received 50. He says the program is already oversubscribed and demand is far outweighing Ontario's annual nominations. A spokesman for Mendicino said the government has committed to increasing the number of spaces in the province nominee program by nearly 27,000 spaces, giving them the autonomy to select the economic immigrants that suit their labor market needs. Quote, "We have also introduced the Rural and Northern Immigration Pilot, which will help rural and remote areas attract and retain newcomers to tackle some of the demographic challenges we face," Matthew Jeunesse wrote in a statement. Furthermore, the municipal nominee program announces that the electoral platform be helped enhance the ability to communities to help out the talent they need to help their economy grow. So what does that mean? What are they saying in that? They're talking about more people coming into Ontario to take your position for jobs. For the last few years, it has not been easy when it comes to getting work in Ontario. And it's still not that easy. In fact, it actually got much more difficult a couple years ago when Kathleen Wynne increased the minimum wage up from $11 and about 50 cents an hour, or $11.25 an hour, to $14 an hour. Now, employers are starting to hire part-time a lot more. So even though they raise the minimum wage, you're not making any more money. Actually, in some cases, you're making less because of it. And now, Doug Ford and his government wants to bring in immigrants to take those positions because of labor shortages, instead of keeping things the way that they are and then forcing these companies to pay more for labor. Forcing these employers to actually not just have an increased pool of people that they can just hire on, people who are willing to work for the lowest wage they can possibly give. They would have been forced to bump that up, maybe a few more dollars, to encourage other people to be willing to come in and do that job. And in exchange for that, these people would have had a better standard of living. But that's not the case. But this isn't the only thing that Doug Ford has backed down on. This is a guy that came in with we're going to make Ontario open for business. This is a guy that was talking about we're going to put the stops on this LGBT sex ed curriculum in schools. But he's backed down on most of these promises. In fact, just before the election ended up taking place in 2018, he threw Tanya Granick-Allen out of the Progressive Conservative Party because of some videos that were dug up of things that they didn't like that she had to say. And they threw her out despite the fact she was a champion when it comes to making sure that this LGBTQ agenda was taken out of schools. And that's something else that they're not freaking doing. Ontario School Board provides sex work and extreme sex act resources to students. Young children. In April of last year, retired Principal Tony Kiar met with the Superintendent of Schools at Upper Canada District School Board to raise his concerns about sexually explicit... Oh, let me switch that over. There you go. Now you can actually see it. There's the headline. Ontario Board provides sex work and extreme acts resources for students. In April last year, retired Principal Tony Kiar met with the Superintendent of Schools at Upper Canada District School Board to raise his concerns about sexually explicit material that are easily available from the school board website. With just a few clicks from the Family Resource section on the UCDSB, someone could access soft porn that includes information about anal sex, scissoring, fisting, and sex work, among other things, on a school board website. After this meeting, he received a letter outlining why the school board believed that access to such materials was within their mandate. The superintendent of schools wrote, "While the appropriateness of such material may be debatable to you, it's not debatable just to this former principal. It's debatable to anyone in a fucking decent society. You don't give porn out to children. In fact, I believe that is fucking illegal to be handing out pornographic material to underage children." So, moving on. It may be debatable to you. I feel it's important to point out that research shows clearly that access to sex education does not foster promiscuous behavior. Indeed, sexual health education has shown to reduce such behaviors. No, sexual health is education. It reduces the amount of accidents that happen, like, people getting pregnant and that sort of thing. But let's not pretend for a freaking minute that it's not fostering promiscuous behavior, because kids these days, and this has been going on for decades, are having sex younger and younger and younger with more and more partners, and sexually transmitted diseases are more prominent now than they ever have been. On average, every single millennial has one STD, which means that for every millennial that has never gotten an STD, there is another one who has gotten multiple STDs. The average millennial woman has had one abortion. This is the point that we're at, and you're going to tell me that it has nothing to do with sex education. Because sex education, this is all going back to when Doug Ford was supposed to roll it back to 1998, and people are saying, well, they're not giving you the tools. giving students the tools that they need. The whole point of it was to push this agenda in. And even then, he backed down on that. He then said, well, we're rolling it back to the 1998 sex ed curriculum, but then he even, when he received some lashback, he's like, okay, you know what, well, not quite, we're going to add some stuff in. This is the type of thing that was being added in. I'd like to see this research that says it does not foster promiscuous behavior. I mean, it's not strictly the sex ed, it's the normalization of sex outside of marriage. Without a doubt, that is also fostering it. Porn is definitely fostering it. There's more factors in than just simply sex education. But sexual education, especially the type we're having these days, are fostering promiscuity a lot, are definitely fostering promiscuity, and you can't rule that out. Moving on. Indeed, sexual health education has been shown to reduce such behaviors. Students who have access to more information wait longer to participate in sexual activities and are more likely to use proper protection when they do so. Actually, yes, that is one part I will agree. They will use proper protection when they do decide to have sex. But you're saying that they're going to wait longer? No, they're not. Because the more you teach them at a younger and younger age, they have the knowledge now of how you do it. And if you're going to paint it in such a good light, I mean, I don't really think there's probably next to nobody out there who doesn't enjoy sex. But if you're going to keep pushing this on kids to talk about how great it is, how good it feels and stuff, you think they're not going to do it? Moving on. And most importantly, in this time of attending to the well-beings of others, this resource offers a hotline for young people to avail of support of their well-being and care. As a superintendent with portfolio responsibility for equity and inclusion, there are those fucking words again, equity and inclusion, I want to ensure that the school district's practice are consistent with the goals of the UCDSB and aligned with the board's equity and inclusion policy, which states, UCDSB is therefore committed to an equitable education system that holds and reflects the principles of fair and inclusive education, which should permeate all policy, programs, practices, and operation. Emphasis added, David Coombs, Superintendent of Schools. So really what they're trying to say with these talking equity and inclusion is the transgender agenda, is the LGBT agenda. Because this is all they could ever mean by it. You need to teach kids about being trans. You need to teach kids about all the different sexual acts out there. So that way they know. They know about it. But we've already gone through. We're talking about fisting and anal sex. And you're going to see more of it in just a minute. The thing is, too, is it's not the school board's responsibility to create an outlet for children when they have questions about sex. That is the parent's job. That is the whole point of being a parent. But the school board is trying to take that away from the parents. And it's not an easy conversation. I have no doubt it's not an easy conversation. But that is the conversation for the parents to have with their own children. Not to be dissuaded, Chiara responded with a letter of his own and pointed that the Public Health Ontario Infectious Disease Advisory Committee on Communicable Diseases categorizes high-risk sexual behaviors as sexual practices that may cause bleeding or abrasions resulting in blood-to-blood contact between participants. He argues that because this kind of high-risk behavior has been promoted by Youthline, the site is not safe for any child and therefore should not be accessible to the UCDSB website. The link was eventually removed from the school board website. When contacted for comment, the UCDSB said it removed all external links to their LGBTQ plus resources section because they don't control the content of other websites. But they're explicitly saying that it was their LGBT resource section that was showing this. The transgender agenda. But look at right here. Look. What we're seeing here. Fuck me. Tips for safer sex. First of all, the language you're using, fucking ass and vagina, rimming, scissoring, sucking and licking, fisting, fingering and hand jobs, toys, anal sex, rim jobs, putting someone's tongue against the anal ring of another person. And hey, if that's your thing, I'm not judging. I have a problem with it when you're trying to push this on fucking children. Fisting. The act of stretching out either the anus or the vagina with your fist. You think that's safe? You think these kids are going to be doing it properly and safely when they have almost no experience? Well, they have some experience probably by now with their own body, but with other people's bodies? When they don't know the limits that they can push this sexual activity? So where you been, Doug Ford? Where are you? You're not making life easier for the average working class out there, who the people you championed for, that you championed for when you ran to become the Premier of Ontario. You're actually making it more difficult for them to find jobs and find higher quality jobs, because now immigrants are coming in and taking that over. And then on top of that, this happened under your watch. These sort of youthline LGBT fucking bullshit is happening underneath your watch. And you think that's all? It's getting younger and younger and younger all the time. This says here, a friend of a friend's 13-year-old son has photographed this poster made by the kids and on display at his school in Canada. It's wrong on so many levels. Bear, leather, why are we doing this to kids? And you can see it right over here. They got leather. They got bear, which is probably making reference to furries of some kind. And all the different genders. You want to know why there's so many confused kids out there these days? Why so many of them insist that they're actually a boy instead of a girl, or a girl instead of a boy, or don't identify on the binary system? It's because of shit like this. Schools have just become, more so than they ever have been, have just become indoctrination. So thank you, Doug Ford. Thank you for this ultimate act of betrayal. Thank you for selling our kids out to the LGBT sex ed program. Thank you for selling the workers out to immigrants, people who came here. And these are not just refugees or immigrants. These are economic migrants, people who came here to work, to make money, and send it home. That really is what a lot of economic migrants do, is they take the money and they ship it out of the country. So we lose the money. We have to cover that by printing more money, which waters down our currency and makes life harder for everybody else. All right. Let's get into a little bit of what's going on with the Conservative Party. The Angus Reid Institute conducted a survey when it comes to those who might be running for the leadership. There's been Aaron O'Toole. Some are wondering whether Michelle Rempel will run, although she has not confirmed this. There's some who believe Pierre Poilievre might run. But then there's Rona Ambrose. And that seems to be the popular choice. On CPC leadership, both non-conservatives and party faithfuls say Rona Ambrose has the right stuff. Now, first things first. If non-conservatives think that Rona Ambrose should lead the Conservative Party of Canada, then you know that's not who you want. I mean, would the Liberals want a conservative-approved candidate leading the Liberal Party? Probably not, because if you are a member of outside the conservative movement and you're approving this, that's because they actually appeal to what your principles are, the things that you stand by. And this is exactly what it is with Rona Ambrose. Let's see. The latest study from the nonprofit Angus Reid Institute in the wake of Scheer's announcement, his resignation, shows Canadians, whether core conservative voters or those who might vote CPC, want to see the party move closer to the political center. Hold on. Okay. Not that I'm advocating for them or anything, but do you remember when, over the last year, you've seen a lot on social media, if on Twitter, if you've seen Twitter or Facebook, you've seen a lot of this. But do you remember when Conservative Party supporters were saying that the idea of the Conservatives becoming a centrist party, moving more to the left, was bullshit? That was something that supporters of the People's Party of Canada and Maxime Bernier were just pulling out of their ass, that they were in fact the real liberals and everything? This is literally core conservatives, as well as others, of course, but core conservatives say they want the party to move closer to the political center, which also means that because Rona Ambrose is the favorite right now, that she is a red Tory, that she is closer to the left. But I just find that funny how they say that. For 6 out of 10 Canadians overall, that means taking climate change more seriously and taking more progressive stances on social values. In each case, 4 in 10 core conservatives agree. That's a significant number, 4 out of 10. That is almost 50% of your base. Almost 50% of your base is agreeing with taking the party more to the center, to being more, quote-unquote, progressive, that dirty word. And they believe that Rona Ambrose is going to be the one to do it, which means also that these core conservatives are agreeing. They are agreeing with people from other political parties and other political stances on this situation. Let's see. But right now, what it is saying is that they believe that Rona Ambrose seems to be the favorite. Well, she shouldn't be the favorite. And it's just going on with this idea that the Conservatives have moved on to become a globalist party. Remember, in the video we just did, the live stream we did just a couple days ago, we were talking about Kansas, where there are a number of Conservative Party of Canada members of parliament that are sitting on this board that is advocating for mass migration from the Commonwealth countries, which means that it's going to be mass migration from African Commonwealth countries. And that's going to be a loophole that can be used in order to get into Canada from people who don't come from Commonwealth countries, people who move in there or have fake passports, fake IDs that say they're part of Nigeria or something. And then they can come to Canada on this basis because they're, quote-unquote, part of the Commonwealth. And now it seems like there's going to be a freaking a red Tory that's going to be reading them. Well, we do know that they're being led right now. They're being led right now, if you put Scheer to the side, by literally a liberal. Someone who was a liberal last year. But here's something Rona Ambrose said on the abortion debate. On 2013, 4 months ago, Rona Ambrose voted in favor of a motion that would have tasked a committee of MPs with studying the legal definition of when life begins. Yesterday, asked about the abortion, she told the House the following: Mr. Speaker, let me be clear. Stealing a quote from someone I admire very much, Hillary Clinton, I believe abortion should be safe, legal, and rare. I would encourage the members to work with me on the status of Women's Committee on issues that women want to debate. This is an issue that women are not interested in debating. So the interim leader, actually, you know what, sorry, she was not the interim leader at this point. She was an MP. But she says that from someone she admires very much, Hillary Clinton. First of all, a Democrat, a fucking Democrat, a liberal, but also the woman involved in dozens of murders, allegedly. Of course, we gotta say allegedly until everything comes out, until anything is proven. But this is who they want to be led. This is who they want to lead the Conservative Party of Canada. But there's more. Oh, you think I'm done? Oh, no. We got something else for you. A lovely thing. Why am I bringing up the Trilateral Commission? The Trilateral Commission. Let's just use this here real quick. This will be the definition that they probably use from the Trilateral Commission uses to talk about itself. The group, founded in 1973, meets annually in secret with participants primarily from media, international business, think tank, finances, education, lobbying, and government. All major countries are represented except Russia. The organization's goal is to diminish nationalist interests and future government policies influenced by them and their organization. So I actually think this is the definition that was given from this website, which is freddonaldson.com. But that's not really the important part. Why did I bring up the Trilateral Commission? I'm sure you can guess. Look at that. Rona Ambrose, former MP, former interim leader, Conservative Party, former Minister for the Status of Women, Environment, Health, and Public Works, Ottawa, sits on the fucking Trilateral Commission. One of the fucking commissions whose whole point is to undermine the interest of independent nations, to try and push through the new world order, the one world government. And that is in the own words of its founder, David Rockefeller. Or at least what David Rockefeller talking about what his work has been about. And I have that video right here.
Praised his media allies, but his confidence that his words would not leave the room was later broken.
Alright, I'm just going to restart that because it may have clipped. It was very loud. Alright, let's go.
Praised his media allies, but his confidence that his words would not leave the room was later broken.
We are grateful to the Washington Post, the New York Times, Time Magazine, and other publications whose directors have attended our meetings and restricted their promises of discretion for almost 40 years. It would have been impossible for us to develop our plan for the world if we had been subject to the bright lights of publicity. But the world is now more sophisticated and prepared to march toward a world government.
That these men aim to create a world system of financial control in private hands, able to dominate the political system of each country and the economy of the world as a whole. In short, they seek total and quiet control of the entire world. Praised his media.
Those are the words of David Rockefeller, the founder of the Trilateral Commission. And what his plans were for the world, also implicating the media, which has to do with which also has to, it plays a role in this whole situation. But this is from March 2019. And this is where Rona Ambrose sits on it. Now, I'm not actually 100%. Let's take a look. Did she sit on the... Oh, wait. No. Hold on. Ambrose. So she wasn't part of the Trilateral Commission in 2018. If she wasn't in during then, probably not likely that she was in there earlier. No, so it looks like this is her first time sitting on the Trilateral Commission, which now kind of makes me wonder a little bit about the resignation of Andrew Scheer. Was it planned? Because, I don't know, this seems a little too weird to me. That this is her first year sitting on this, and then Andrew Scheer gets booted after weeks of saying that he's not going to go anywhere. A small little scandal like that takes him down, where he resigns. Granted, he was a weak leader, but now it looks like that Rona Ambrose is going to take over as the leader of the Conservative Party. So is Andrew Scheer's resignation planned? Did the true powers that be, the political elite, they orchestrate this? I don't know. I'm just asking questions right now. I don't actually know for a fact. I just find that a little weird. Alright, let's move on. Another story. Oh, wait, no, we're not done yet. Former Quebec Liberal Premier may run for Conservative leadership. Alleged corruption that took place under the tenure of Charest Liberals is still being investigated in Quebec by anti-corruption authorities. Jean Charest, the former Quebec Liberal Premier, former Minister of the Mulroney government, and former Progressive Conservative Party leader, is considering a run for the Conservative leadership. According to Radio Canada, Charest has been urged to run by some MPs who remain unnamed. Charest is said to be consulting his family. After leaving the PC party, Charest joined the Quebec Liberals in 1998. So, first of all, it's not the opposite. It's not that he was a liberal who moved over to become a conservative is now running that. He was a conservative who became a liberal who's now planning a run for the Conservative Party. So we have a liberal as the deputy leader of the Conservative Party, the second in command, and now we have another liberal that is running to be the leader of the Conservative Party. Oh, this just keeps getting better and better. Between 2003 and 2012, Charest served as the Liberal Premier of Quebec. As noted in a report of his potential run, Quebec Anti-Corruption UPAC authorities are still investigating alleged corruption that took place during Charest's time as Quebec Liberal Party leader, including investigations into collect Liberal Party financing. But this is where we're standing right now. When it comes to the Conservative Party, you have people who are longtime core Conservative MPs that sit on a board that advocates for mass migration. You have the former interim leader of the Conservative Party who sits on the Trilateral Commission. And you have a Quebec Liberal running for the Conservative leadership. Good luck, Conservative Party. Good fucking luck. Alright, so this ended up coming out a few days ago. And it is an unbelievable story of what we allow here in this country. Canada has a secret program that grants visas to war criminals, terrorists, and security threats. 3 months before he boarded a plane in Cairo and 6 months before he made a refugee claim in Toronto, Canadian security officials deemed retired Brigadier General Khalid Saber Abdelham Zawo inadmissible to Canada because of national security concerns. Zawo was a high-ranking member of the Egyptian military when it orchestrated a coup of President Mohamed Morsi's government in 2013, according to Canada's Border Service Agency. An inadmissibility finding would keep most people out of Canada, but it didn't stop Zawa. It didn't stop Zawa and his wife from obtaining valid visitor visas from the Canadian Embassy in Egypt in April 2015. This is because, according to internal government documents obtained by Global News, Canada has a secret program that allows certain high-profile foreign nationals who would otherwise be barred from entering the country due to national security concerns, war crimes, human rights violation, and organized crime to be granted special public policy entry visas so long as it is in Canada's national interest. How would having war criminals and terrorists, how would that be in Canada's national interest? That is putting the public, the Canadian public, people who were born and raised here, in danger. And what is this national interest? Short answer, nobody knows. But exactly what national interest means in relation to this policy and how the government decides who gets this kind of visa is unclear. That's because there's almost no information available about the program, and governments refuse to answer questions. So is this the whole thing that ended up happening with the ISIS terrorists that ended up coming back? It was in national interest? Was it in your best interest, Canada? Did you feel safer and that your needs were being met by letting in ISIS terrorists and people like Zawa? In Zawa's case, visitors' visas were issued after a senior official from the Department of National Defense in Ottawa wrote a letter to Immigration, Refugee, and Citizenship Canada saying Zawa and his wife should be given visas to avoid upsetting Canada's relationship with Egypt's military. The military that tried to overthrow their own government. What fucking difference does it make? What difference does it make? Who cares whether Egypt's military is happy with Canada or not? Is Egypt a good ally to Canada? How often do we cite Egypt as a necessary ally for Canadian interests, for Canadian safety? Never. That's when. So this is bullshit. Don't believe that they're doing it to avoid upsetting our relationship with Egypt's military. They have no strategic interest to us, Egypt's military. So we should not fucking care. So we've become a haven for terrorists and war criminals and security threats. This is your reality you live in. This is your country that you live in, Canada. Maybe we'll get to that one later. SNC Lavalin is back in the news. The Prime Minister says he might have acted differently if he knew how SNC Lavalin case would end. This seems to be just this is just something he seems to do, isn't it? This is no different to his whole situation with Gropergate, where it turns out that in 2001 at an event, he groped a reporter. And what did he tell her? Oh, I never would have been so forward if I knew you were with the press. Now he says, I might have acted differently if I knew how SNC Lavalin case would end. Really? You wouldn't have tried to interfere with a criminal case? Because that's what he fucking did. That's what he fucking did. And the definition of a dictator government, the definition of a dictator, is an individual or a government who has control over the legislative, executive, and judicial branches of a government. Now, during this time, the executive branch is made up of the Prime Minister and his cabinet ministers. The legislative branch is Parliament, which the Liberals had a majority in. So they had control of the executive, they had control of the legislative. And then they tried influencing the judicial branch. They tried to take control of the judicial branch. Because don't forget, there was the Mark Norman case where they tried to do the same fucking thing. Try and lock up Vice Admiral Mark Norman, the number 2 in the Canadian Navy, for something he didn't do wrong. Something he was given permission to do by the Harper government, the predecessor to the Trudeau government. And they tried to throw him through the ringer. Oh man, if I ever get inside a huge court case, I want to have Mark Norman's lawyer on my side. That woman did great fucking work. Not only did she win the court case, but she exposed the government for the fucking corrupt pieces of shit that they are. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says his government might have acted differently had it known the criminal case against SNC-Lavalin would be resolved without crippling the company or throwing thousands of its employees out of work. Obviously, as we look back over the past year and this issue, there are things we could have, should have, and would have done differently had we known. Had we known all sorts of different aspects of it, he said Wednesday in a year-end interview with the Canadian press, just hours after the Montreal engineering giant pleaded guilty to one charge of fraud, in which they got a fine of $280 million that they had to pay. That's nothing. That's fucking nothing for a company such as this. Absolutely fucking nothing. For what they were engaging in, it's nothing. Throughout the year-long saga that shook Trudeau's government and likely contributed to the Liberals being reduced to a minority in the October 21st election, the Prime Minister argued his only preoccupation was protecting the 9,000 innocent Canadian employees as well as pensioners, shareholders, and suppliers who stood to be harmed if SNC was convicted on corruption charges related to contracts in Libya. Under the current federal policy, a criminal conviction could have barred the SNC-Lavalin from federal contracts for 10 years. I know for a fact that this is horseshit. I know this for a fact because when this was all blowing up this past year, when we were at the peak of SNC-Lavalin, February, March, and around April of this past year, when all this was going on, SNC-Lavalin was putting out advertisements for job opportunities. I know this because I was looking for jobs at around that time. And I happen to work in a field. I happen to be educated in a field where that actually is like SNC-Lavalin is right on is. I do the same kind of work as to what SNC-Lavalin is. I could go and work for SNC-Lavalin if they accepted my resume, because what I am educated in actually pertains to the work that they do. They were advertising for jobs when all this was blowing up, so there was no reason for Justin Trudeau to be protecting 9,000 innocent Canadian employees. Oh, he cares about shareholders and pensioners, even though the Canadian government has been chiseling away at people's pensions for a long frickin' time, stealing from their pensions. But this is the whole problem he has. He doesn't actually have a problem. He doesn't actually have a problem with what they did. He's not a problem with what he did. He has a problem that they got caught. That is his only issue he has. And now, nothing's going to change. See what else I got. Let's do this UN one. UN peacekeepers fathered hundreds of babies in Haiti, then left them in poverty. This came out on December 18th. This is from metro.co.uk. United Nations peacekeeper fathered hundreds of children while deployed in Haiti, then abandoned their young mothers to live to lives of poverty, a new report claims. The study into the UN's longest peacekeeping mission said that girls as young as 11 would trade sex for food or a few coins so they could survive amid political turmoil and the aftermath of the 2010 earthquake. After being sexually abused and impregnated, they were left in misery to raise their children alone, the Times reported. The problem was so prevalent that locals even had a name for it. Children fathered by UN aid workers were repeatedly nicknamed Petit Minusta, which, after the acronym of the mission to the country between 2004 and 2017, United Nations Mission for Justice Support in Haiti. The research team was led by Sabine Lee from the University of Birmingham, and they conducted more than 2,500 interviews with people living close to UN bases in the country between June and August 2017. UN babies was raised as an issue with no prompting more than 250 times, the newspaper said. Soldiers from 12 countries had been identified as having fathered babies and abandoned them, the research claims. Professor Lee said it was impossible to state a definitive number of peacekeeper-fathered children, but added that most researchers and NGOs officials would agree that 100 is a credible estimate. Hundreds is a credible estimate. But if you've been paying attention to the UN at all lately, then you know that this is just par for the course. Because the UN is not only filled with corrupt bureaucrats, the UN is also staffed by pedophiles and rapists and sexual predators. Coming out of it, this was from the 12th of February 2018. Bombshell UN dossier. UNA workers raped 60,000 people as its claim organization employed 3,300 pedophiles. The claim is in a bombshell dossier that former senior United Nations official Andrew McLeod handed over to DFID Secretary Priti Patel last year. In it, Professor McLeod also estimated there are 3,300 pedophiles working for the world body various agencies alone. So, when you have thousands of people that work for your organization that are rapists and pedophiles, actually, let's not forget that, what was the guy's name? The guy who received the Order of Canada. Order of Canada arrested pedophile. What was his name? Peter Dalglish, who was arrested not that long ago, who is convicted too. Peter Dalglish worked for the UN. Also a friend of Justin Trudeau's. And he was arrested and thrown into jail in Nepal for being a pedophile who abused young children. He also worked for the UN. Did work for the UN. So the UN are nothing more than a corrupt group that takes your money, squanders it, while giving themselves huge salaries, that's what the bureaucrats do, and employing rapists and pedophiles, while at the same time take away your rights, your sovereignty, any way that they can. That is all that the UN does. That is all they ever do. And I think that's where I'm going to leave it today. Yeah, going for a little over 45 minutes. I think that's good. Alright, thank you all for tuning in to the True North Report. This is news every Canadian needs to know.